Hello iPad letterers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Karen, I'm from iPad Lettering and here to help you explore all the wonderful things you can create with your iPad. In today's video, I want to show you how you can create all these beautiful color palettes starting with one single color. This is such a fun and easy process and I'll show you a number of different ways of how you can take your color palette creation to the next level. Make sure you keep watching all the way to the end so you're not missing any of my cool little tricks. I think we can all agree that color is hard, no matter what it applies to. I've tried coloring my hair this morning out of desperation because all the hairdressers are closed and the color I got wasn't even close to what I wanted. This is what it said on the packaging and this is what I got. It's rather on the orange side and luckily my husband really likes orange, so it's not too bad. Oh well, what can you do? Luckily, we have a little bit more control over the outcome of our color selections on the iPad, but that doesn't mean that selecting colors is easy. And also, how can you tell which colors go really nicely together? Think about the last time you wanted to make a color palette. How did you go about it and how did it come out? There is the new color harmony tool available in Procreate now, which is nice, but to be honest, I've not found it that useful. It's quite possible that I just don't know how to use it properly. I've also studied color theory as part of my graphic design degree, but for some reason I still don't understand how to apply this knowledge in practice. What I tend to do when I have to come up with a color palette is use one of the color generators that you can find on the internet, or I also use Pinterest for inspiration. The problem I have with using color generators is that it usually only gives me 4 or 5 colors, and it's also hard sometimes to really customize the color palette that you get. And we all know what happens when you go on Pinterest. Yes, the afternoon is pretty much gone. But now I'm going to show you a much better way of how you can create an endless amount of color palettes starting with only one color. It's so cool. Let's start up Procreate and let's create a new canvas. The canvas size you choose doesn't matter too much. I've just selected the default screen size, which is absolutely fine. Now the first thing you want to do is have a look at how you can select colors in Procreate. So we open up the color wheel, which by the way is also detachable, so you can move this around the screen, which is super handy, and with the X button it sort of goes back here. So we've got the disc mode, we've got the classic mode, we've got the color harmony, which we've seen before and I don't find super useful. Then we've got the value sliders and then we also have our palettes here, and this is what we're going to do, create a brand new palette. I usually work in the disc mode. This is my preferred view of all the colors, so let's start with this one. So now for the one color that you're going to choose to create all these palettes from, either choose your favorite color or choose a color that you use quite frequently for your designs. Also make sure that the color is not too dark and it's not too saturated. And when I say saturated, I mean don't choose a color that sits on the very border here of your color wheel. You want the color that sits right about here on your color wheel, and then you can change the hues, and I actually really like purple or pink, so actually I'm going to choose this purple color here. So now what we're going to do is create a swatch on the page and start in the middle somewhere. We're going to create 4 swatches this way, and then we're also going to create 4 swatches that way. And the way that we are going to add these color swatches is almost like in an arc motion. So if you imagine an arc going across the selected color like this, this is the range of colors that we are going to choose from. And then we are also going to slide the hue wheel onto both sides. So to start with, we are going to the left and we are going to make our colors a little bit lighter and also a little bit less saturated. So just ever so slightly going to move this a little bit further up, and then we are also going to change the hue like this, and then we are going to paint this pink color like that. I'm going to go back and we're going to do the same thing again. So we're going to do this 4 times. I'm choosing this light red. And you can see now the reason why we've chosen a sort of mid-tone to start with is so that we have a little bit of wiggle room to both sides. So we're going to go a little bit further, lighter, and then now we can almost go into orange, and then we're going to do one more, and this is almost yellow. All right, and now we're going to select the original color again, and you can do that by holding down your finger to invoke the eyedropper tool. So now we've got the original color back, and so now we're going to go the opposite way. So we're going to drag the wheel ever so slightly down and ever so slightly to the right, And then we're going to move our color wheel to the other side. I don't want to drag it too much because I kind of like these purpley colors, so I want some more of those. So I'm going to do this 4 times as well. And then here I recommend that you don't pull it down too much because then the colors will get too dark too quickly. So usually I prefer dragging it further to the right rather than down. But of course, this is totally up to you. If you prefer having more darker colors, then definitely go for that. And so you can see now the last color is probably going to be quite dark. And it's quite similar to the previous color. But that's okay, that's only our first attempt. And as you can see, this is already a pretty nice color palette. Now let me show you how we can make this even better. So the first thing you're going to do is sort of trim the edges a little bit. And the easiest way I found to do that is use that rectangle selection tool. So we can drag the selection rectangle around our colors. And then what we're going to do is copy and paste this onto a new layer. So now we have all the colors like this on a new layer. Now we can maybe tidy up the side a little bit as well. And an easy way to do that is just to slide it to the side. And so that's going to cut off the edge and give you a nice straight edge. And then maybe we'll do it on the other side as well. And then we can make it a bit bigger like this. Okay, so now we're going to name this layer. This is going to be our middle layer. And then we're going to copy it twice. And then this one is going to be the top layer and this one's going to be our bottom layer. So now we need to move them. So we're going to select the bottom layer, turn on magnetics and turn on uniform, and then you can slide it down like this. And you can see here now that the edges don't match properly. So there's an easy trick. You can flip it vertically and then boom, they match. So now we can just overlap them a little bit because we really want them to be continuous like this. All right, so now we're going to do the same with the top. We're going to flip it around and then we're going to move it up until we get to the edge like that. And now is where the magic starts. We're going to select the hue, saturation and brightness sliders. And for the top layer, we're going to increase the brightness just a little bit. It doesn't need to be too much, maybe up to 56%. And then we are going to bring down the saturation. Remember, the light, the colors, the least saturation we want. Not too much, maybe 42% is nice. And then we are also ever so slightly going to change the hue and we're going to move it to the left. Maybe 46% looks good. All right, so that's one layer down. Now let's go to the bottom layer and let's do the same thing. Except we're not going to do the same thing. We're actually going to do the opposite. So what we're going to do here is we are going to decrease the brightness to make it ever so slightly darker. And I think 45% is probably good. And then we're going to increase the saturation here. Again, not too much, 55, 56% is probably quite nice. Actually, I still think this is a little bit too light, so let's just bring it down a bit more. And then we're also going to shift the hue ever so slightly, and this time we're going to move it to the right. So we're going to bring it up to maybe 54%. And now look at that, isn't that cool? We've got a full color palette consisting of 27 colors, just like that. That's how easy it was. So now let's add it to our Procreate palette. So you can tap the plus sign. Let's bring this to the top, and then let's select the disc. And now we can populate this color. And now all you have to do is hold down your finger to invoke the eyedropper tool and then place the color on the palette like this. So now we're going to do that for all the colors. So if you find that it takes too long to invoke the eyedropper tool, what you can do, you can go to the settings here and then go to gesture controls and then go to eyedropper and drop this down to 0.20 seconds, and then it goes a lot faster. If you find later that you're invoking the color palette by mistake, then you can always go back here and you can increase this delay to a little bit more, maybe a second or something, and then you can prevent the eyedropper tool from popping up when you don't want it. But for this exercise, it's really handy to have it set to this value. All right, so now let's go back to our colors and let's add them all here. And you can see I actually have deliberately not selected 10, but only 9. And the reason for that is I like to have 3 spare slots here. And usually what I do is I just put black and white, and then sometimes I have a favorite color and then I might add that there as well. So this looks pretty cool. So now we can add white. You can sort of double tap anywhere in this region to select white and then add it to the palette. And then for black, you tap down there, just double tap anywhere in the region here, and then that'll give you a black selection. And there we go. our first palette finished. All right, so now let's see what else we can do with this palette. So the first thing we're going to do is group these layers, and then we're going to duplicate the layer, and we're going to flatten this group. And the reason why we're doing that is so that we have a copy of our original colors, and now we can modify this. So now we can maybe make this a little bit smaller again and put it here just for reference. And then we're going to take another copy and we can put this here. So now what we can do to easily modify this color palette is bring back our hue, saturation, brightness sliders. And now you can go in and you can see what happens if you just make it ever so slightly lighter, maybe decrease the saturation a bit, and then maybe also change the hue. And you can see now how easy it is to create a completely different palette from the original palette that we had. Isn't that cool? So you can choose anything you want. I actually really like this type of color palette. I've made quite a few that are kind of similar to this. And there we go. That's how easy it was. Now, of course, for some designs, you might not actually need this many colors. So now what we can do as well is create a new layer. And now let's pick some random colors from one of these palettes and create a new palette from that. So I really like this purple. So let's start with this, and then let's add some other colors to see what this looks like, and then maybe dark blue as well. And now you can see how easy it is to create all these different palettes. So this looks very, very nice. Now let's start with this. I don't normally like this color so much, but let's see what we can create just using our pre-made palette. This is pretty good. And then maybe this light one here again. Not bad, right? So now let's do one with this palette here. So we're going to choose purple and blue. I like this sort of green as well, and then the dark one maybe looks pretty good, and then one more just for good measure. And there we go, another 4 palettes just like that. So now this is pretty neat, but there is even more that we can do with this. So let's go back to our original palette and let's duplicate this once more, and then let's maybe move it down here. We've got a little bit of space. So now what we can do as well is, instead of using the hue, saturation and brightness sliders, we can also use that color balance. This is actually a really, really nice tool as well. So now we can change the shadows, the midtones and the highlights. So let's start with the highlights and let's see what happens if we add a little bit of yellow. So you can see the whole color palette instantly warms up, but just by adding more yellow to the lighter tones. And then here we can maybe add a bit of green or magenta to make it all pink. It's pretty good. And then the cyan as well. And you can see now at the start, these colors were quite similar, but just by changing the midtones, and then later on you'll see if we change the shadows, this is going to change even more. So this is how we can manipulate the initial colors that we've selected, but the whole palette still looks really nice and all the colors are still matching. Isn't this amazing? And then just because we can, I want to show you another way of how you can change these color palettes. So now what we're going to do is add a new layer at the top of the stack here, and we're going to change the blend mode to overlay, and then we are going to fill this layer with a nice bright color. You can choose one of the colors you've already got in your palette, but I recommend that you choose another one. Maybe choose a bright blue color and then fill the layer with this color. And now you can see how we've added this bright tone to all the colors. So now if we wanted to change this, what we can do now, go back to hue, saturation and brightness, and maybe we don't like blue so much. So let's see what happens if we make this more purple or maybe more red. And now again, we have a completely different selection of colors just by doing that. And then of course you can also play with the saturation again and the brightness, maybe brighten up your palette if you're looking for more brighter colors. And then instead of spending your whole afternoon looking on Pinterest for nice color palettes, you can spend the whole afternoon making your own color palettes and making them exactly the way you want. It's so cool. I really hope this video inspires you to create your own color palette. The color palettes I've created here in this video are going to be available as a free download from my website, so make sure you check that out. I'm going to put the link in the description box of this video. And then if you're curious to learn how you can use the color palettes to fill in your lettering pieces or your art pieces, I'm going to bloop up another video here so you can see exactly how you can do that. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and share this video with your friends and family. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.